We're going to do a plug-and-play remote starter that activates by pressing lock 3 times from the OEM remote. This is a 2016. The year group of vehicles that this video will cover is the 2010 through 2017 G Key. You must check the key for this letter G on the 2010 because the 2010 could be a standard key which would have a dot here and not a G, and that would use my older video and my older system for the older year group of Tundra. This is a 2016 G Key, so we're going to go ahead and get started. The first step is to have the vehicle, all the entrances and the hood closed with the driver's window rolled down. We're going to go ahead and we're going to lock the vehicle. Once we lock the vehicle, we're going to wait about a minute, and then we're going to walk over and we're going to unlock the door without using the key or the remote and open it. If an alarm goes off, then we will have to make an extra connection during the installation. We're going to walk over to the vehicle and we're going to open the door. If an alarm sounds, then this vehicle is equipped with an OEM alarm system. So we're going to reach through the window that we have open. We're going to... Okay, our vehicle is equipped with an OEM alarm, so we will be making a key sense wire connection during the installation. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. Start by disassembling some of the plastic around the driver's area. We're going to take off the steering column cover plastic and we're going to remove the lower dash plastic. We're going to be using a 10 millimeter on a drill, a Phillips bit, and a plastic tool. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. We're going to remove the lower dash piece first. So to begin, we're going to use our plastic tool, which you can get in any auto parts store. This is a official Fortin plastic tool. It's actually a urethane spreader for installing windshields to spread the urethane. But it's nice on this plastic because it doesn't mar it up. We're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the side panel. Point, we're going to remove a 10 millimeter from here and here underneath the dash. Okay, remove 110. We have another 10 millimeter under here. So what we're going to do is you could take this piece here and you could pop it out of the way and get this 10 millimeter, or you can remove the whole kick panel trim here. I'm going to remove the kick panel trim so that you know how to do it in case you have a problem getting this to snap back on. Sometimes the clip will drop down inside. To remove the tread plate here, we're just going to hook our fingers underneath and pop it up. Now we're going to come around the front, do the same thing, and go all the way back and just release it from the front and from the back. You'll hear it pop out. Now we're going to remove the tread plate. There is a 10 millimeter plastic nut back here. We're just going to take that off with our hand. And now we will be able to remove the kick panel by hooking our fingers in the back and up under here and just popping outward. This will leave it nice and wide open to get the 10 millimeter located right here. We're going to remove the 10 millimeter. At this point, we're going to remove the dash plastic. We're going to grab it here and here. Use our thumbs up here and just apply outward pressure. You're going to repeat it on this side. You can wiggle it if it gives you a problem. If you can't get it with your hand, you put your plastic tool down in here. And you just release all the clips. You can take your time and they will pop out. Any clips that stay in like this, you can release by hand and put them back on the tab that they're supposed to be on the dash. So we're going to unplug all the plugs to the switches here. We have a switch over here. We're going to go ahead and press the clip. We're going to unplug this switch. And we have multiple switches on this side. We're going to press all the release clips and unplug them. If they don't unplug smoothly, you don't have the release clip in. I'm going to give you a closer look. Each plug has a release clip. So on this plug, this is the release clip. We'll push the release clip down, which will allow us to unplug the plug. Hard to do with one hand. Oh, there we go. Okay, so on this plug, the release clip is right here. On this plug, the release clip is right here. And on this plug, the release clip is on the side, a little bit hard to get to. So it's actually on the inside here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to set the tablet down, and I'm going to remove all the plugs. Okay, so I'm going to remove the plugs I've shown you. And if you can't get them with your finger, you can use a pick tool or a small screwdriver to press the clip in. So we removed all the plugs. And now we're going to remove the hood latch. I'm going to give you a closer look. So to release the hood release lever, we're gonna push this clip in and slide this back, and we'll be able to put this cable down through here. I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to remove this light bulb by twisting it and taking it out. There's two tabs that lock in here. It's a twist lock style plug. Okay, so I'm just going to press in this plastic tab, and I can release the lever. It won't come through the back, so we have to take the cable out of the lever here in order to get this piece out of here. So we pulled it up through here like this. There's a little groove on the other side right here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the cable from the lever. I'll give you a close-up of what this looks like. So right here we have a little groove and a mechanism that holds the end of the cable. So with this removed, we can go ahead and we can clear the underside out. Now, you know, you may not have to remove everything like I'm doing. I'm just giving you the whole scenario here. So we're going to go ahead and switch our battery and take the under dash airbag out. We're going to take our 10 millimeter and we're going to remove the under dash airbag assembly. It's a tough little gun here. Okay, so we're going to support the airbag while we're doing this. We don't want it to drop and rip the plug out. So now we're just going to lift it up a little bit. We're going to pull it out. We're going to stand it straight up just like this. Be careful not to pull on the plugs. We're going to move on to the actual steering column cover plastic. We're going to want to turn the wheel because there's two screws on the face of the wheel we're going to remove. Okay, so we've turned the key on. We're going to turn our wheel. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the Phillips screw located here. There is another Phillips screw on the other side. So we're going to do this side first. We're going to go ahead and use our Phillips bit. Get that one out. I'm going to turn the wheel. And we're going to get this one out. At this point, I like to recenter the wheel and shut the key off and remove it from the ignition. Now I'm going to telescope the wheel to the fullest out position, fullest upright as well, and lock it. Whenever I remove steering column cover plastic, I like to apply pressure to the side with my thumb. If you do that, you see how easy that came off. Now that we've released this side, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to wiggle the plastic a little bit, and we're going to release the other side and pull the steering column cover right up here and just flap it up a little bit like this. Now we can go ahead and we can spread this plastic a little bit to get it over the ignition switch and remove the steering column cover plastic. This will give us access to the ignition plug of the vehicle. I'm going to go ahead and change the vantage point of the camera. I'm going to install the ignition plug T-harness. First, we're going to locate the ignition switch. We're going to unplug the ignition switch. The release clip is located on top of the plug. We're going to press it down, and we're going to go ahead and remove the ignition plug. We're going to plug our ignition plug into the ignition. We're going to always support the back of the ignition or the plug while plugging it in so we don't break anything. You want to make sure the plugs lock also. And you can hear a click and pull on a little bit and make sure it's locked. Now we're going to plug the plug we removed from the ignition into our T-harness. We also have a ground connection that we're going to go ahead and make. The ground point that I have selected is right here under this 10mm nut on the stud that holds the BCM bracket up in place. There is a full metal contact here connected to the structure of the vehicle. It's a good place to apply our ground. We're going to go ahead and make the connection. I'm going to use an extension to get up in here. I'm going to remove the nut and make sure we don't drop it anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to route our ground wire up behind this harness here, and we're going to put it on the stud, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the nut back on by hand so we don't cross thread it, and then we'll put the screw gun on it and tighten it down. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step. Move on to installing our secondary harness. I would consider the ignition harness our primary harness and this harness as our secondary harness. I'm going to go ahead and unband it a little bit. Just going to go over the connections real quick. We have a diagnostic plug connection. That's going to go to the diagnostic plug on the driver's side. We have a BCM plug. This is going to plug into our BCM on the driver's side. We have a TPMS connector that interrupts the SIL data line at the TPMS module on the passenger side. So this harness has a long run of wire. We're going to go ahead and we're going to install everything on the driver's side, then we're going to do the passenger side. It's quite simple. We'll start with the BCM interruption plug. So we have our BCM interruption plug. This is what it looks like. We're going to go ahead and we're going to interrupt the plug at the BCM for this vehicle. So if we're looking at the BCM, we're going to want to do the top plug right here. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to unplug the BCM plug. I'm going to put my harness up behind this harness. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug in the T-harness into the BCM. The plug that we removed from the BCM is going to go into our T-harness. We're going to make sure all plugs lock into place. The next plug is the diagnostic plug, located on the airbag bracket, the lower dash airbag bracket that we removed. We're going to go ahead and we're going to pop this out of its mounting by pushing the ears on the side in, and it will release the plug and allow you to pull it out the back. So we're going to go ahead and do that. With the plug released, we're going to locate our diagnostic plug end. So our diagnostic plug end is now going to snap into this mount. So it will only go one way. If it doesn't fit, turn it around. We're going to push and snap and lock it in. Now we're going to use the vehicle's diagnostic plug that we've dismounted from the airbag mount, and we're going to plug it into our T-harness. Again, we're going to make sure all plugs lock into place. This will leave only the connection to the passenger side as our last plug-in connection. I want to just touch on the KeySense wire. In the beginning, we tested for factory security system. This vehicle has an OEM alarm, so this KeySense wire is mandatory, or the alarm's going to go off on remote start. So, having said this, if you do not have an alarm, then you do not connect this wire, as it will make the horn honk after it remote starts. So we're going to look for the KeySense wire location. In the instructions, you have black and white instructions, and by the way, all the guides can be obtained in color on Fortin's website. So when you have a color guide, it makes it a little easier. So we're going to locate the KeySense wire and the plug at the BCM. So we're going to look at this row of plugs. The very bottom plug here, the smaller plug, has the KeySense wire on it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to unplug this plug from the BCM. I'm going to give you a closer look at the BCM. Okay, we're looking at the BCM. This is the first plug, the BCM plug that we've interrupted. Now here is the port that we've removed the plug from for the KeySense wire. Now we're gonna orientate ourselves from the back with the clip up, and we're going to look at this plug and we're going to compare it to the schematic. Now we're looking at our schematic or our plan, and we see a picture of the plug orientated from the back with the clip in the upright position. We're going to read this data here, 10 through 13, our wire should be gray. 14 through 17, our wire should be black. Now, we go by pin location is what you would pretty much rely on. This connection can be tested. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to match up the plug to this drawing, we're going to locate our wire, and then I am going to show you how to test for this if you decide you want to do a test. Rightfully, with any electrical connection, if that connection can be tested and verified, it is better than not testing. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to look again back at the plug. So I'm looking at the plug, and I'm looking at the second pin from the top here. Just trying to spread the wires a little bit. So we would have a black wire on ours, and that is correct according to the diagram. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to make a connection to this wire. In your kit, I've included what's called a posi tap. This posi tap will allow us to make a connection with no tools, no soldering, no stripping of the wires. There's three pieces here. There's a bottom piece, the main body, and a top piece. We're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the bottom piece. The bottom piece of plastic has a groove in it. We're going to put the wire in this groove, and then we're going to tighten down this end of the body of the tap, and that pin is going to pierce the wire. We'll then be able to loosen the collar, slide our wire into the posi tap, tighten the collar back down, and complete our connection. I think it's the very best way next to actually stripping and wrapping and soldering this wire. So this should make an adequate connection if applied properly. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to slip it over the wire. We're keeping it back off of the plug about 1.5 to 2 inches, and we're going to tighten down the body firmly until it tightens down. I'm going to give you a closer look when the connection is complete. To make our incoming connection, and this will be our white with black wire, we're going to loosen the collar. We're going to locate the wire that we want to connect to our KeySense wire. And remember, this keeps our OEM alarm from sounding when the engine is remotely started. So we're going to strip about 1/8 to 1/4. I pre-strip for you, so you just pull off the end and you have the stripped wire. Now we're going to place the wire in the collar, push it in. So you're going to feel it go down and bottom out. At this point, we hold the wire in while we tighten the collar, and voila, our connection is complete. Very uninvasive on the wire. We only have a little pinprick. If I remove this, you wouldn't barely be able to tell there was ever a connection there. And you can remove and reuse this connection as well. So with this connection made, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to plug the KeySense back in. Now when we complete the installation, I may route this around the back of this harness before we zip up. So I can go ahead and I can actually undo this collar connection, and I can remove the wire, put it around the back, and then remake this connection very easily. Just got to make sure all the strands go in, push it down till it bottoms out, and tighten up the collar. We're going to move on to the passenger side to make our TPMS interruption connection. We're on the passenger side of the vehicle. I want to drop this lower plastic piece down because we're going to plug into the TPMS module up underneath the dash here. The reason we have to do this is because if we want the OEM remote to remain active during remote start, this interruption must be done. On some vehicles, this interruption must be done or you can't remote start the vehicle. Vehicles without TPMS should not need or require this connection. We have a couple additional tools that we're going to add to the tool list. It's a different style plastic tool. It's a little bit blunter here. I'm going to use this when I release this, and then I'm going to have this small screwdriver as well, because there's clips over the top of each of these release points. I'm going to push in and release the detent so that this will drop down. I'm trying to give you the best picture possible. So we're going to start with our plastic tool. We're going to create a gap here, and we're going to look in at each point where there's a groove here. This is where the clips are. So we're going to push in the little retainer right here, and then it's going to come down. I'm going to show you what the clips look like. So I'm just going to turn the tool sideways to get a little pressure. I'm going to release the next clip. I'm going to advance the tool down, release the next clip, and then finally we're going to release this side. So to release this, a couple different ways. I'm going to use the small screwdriver very carefully to make and create a small gap in here to put our plastic tool in. Now with our plastic tool, it's going to pry out a little bit. I'm going to release this clip right here. At this point, we can go ahead and we can drop this lower dash down. We have one more clip here. So we're going to go ahead behind here, and we're going to release the final clip. This will allow us to remove the under dash plastic. We're just going to go ahead and we're going to take it right out. This will give us access to route our wire through and make our connection. We're going to run our wire over to the passenger side. Right now we're on the driver's side. I'm going to give you the reference point. I'm going to use a passage back here to send the wire through. So when I do my preliminary routing right now, I want to make sure I have my path already determined before I start routing wires or running wires. I want to make sure that I don't have to pull it back and do it again. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get started. Okay, so I'm probably going to follow the ignition harness a little bit, jump over to this vent right here, and then I'm just gonna set the harness over this top of this. It's like an AC line. We're gonna use that to keep the wire from going into the gas pedal apparatus. And we're gonna go ahead and I'm basically gonna take my hand and I'm gonna stuff it through here. I'm gonna go around the other side and retrieve it with my hand. I don't think that I will need any tools. Okay, so I'm going to take the wire group and I'm going to keep it low, and I can feel there's a couple things here. So I'm going to stay really low, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put the wire through and go around the other side and retrieve it. Pull the carpet back a little bit. Okay, so I have my wire over there. I'll go around the other side and grab it. Okay, so I'm going to reach back through here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the wire. I've got with my fingertips. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pull a little bit through, and I'm going to go to the other side, and I'm going to check just to make sure I'm not tangled on anything and make sure my wire is feeding through as planned. So I'm going to go ahead and check that, and I'm going to come back and continue. Okay, I've checked, and I'm looking good on the other side. I could take a little bit more if I need to, and I can go to the other side and pull it back as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug this connection in. Alright, you're looking at the TPMS module. To give you a reference here, we're on the right-hand side of the blower motor. The box is sitting up under the dash, and the plug faces the back side of the glove box. So while holding this tablet, I'm going to go ahead and try to reach up, giving you the best picture possible of unplugging this module. So we're pushing in the clip, and we're going to remove the plug from the module. So our plug is removed. We're going to plug, our T-harness plug into this plug, and then we're going to plug our male plug back into the module. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to plug our plug in. So make it easier so we're not up there having to do it. And we're going to face our clip this way, and it looks something like this. We're going to go ahead and we're going to plug back in. Try to give you a picture. Okay, so I've started the plug. I'm going to reach up, push it in, and lock it in. Our TPMS interruption connection is complete. Now, we're going to follow this harness when we route our wires and do our final zip up. And we're going to zip our wire right along this harness you'll see up under here, back over to the passage we use to route the wire. We're back on the driver's side. We're ready to program our module. We've plugged in all our connections. We've made our KeySense wire connection, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to program or pair our device, as I would like to call it. A lot of confusion going on. Some people assume that it's programmed to the vehicle prior to receiving it, and then they can just put it in and it's going to work. No, the key codes have to be learned from the vehicle. So we're going to call this step pairing our module rather than programming our module. So to begin pairing our device, we're going to locate the button on the top of the Evo. We're going to press it and hold it with our thumb while we plug in our primary or our 6-pin main power plug. So we're holding the button, we're going to plug in the plug. We do this, the lights on the front are going to begin alternating. There's a red, blue, and yellow light, and they're going to cycle through these colors, and we want to release when we have a solid blue and a solid red light lit. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So we're holding the button, plugging in the plug. Our lights have begun to cycle. We want to release on blue and red. If we fail to do this, we can go ahead and we can unplug the plug, and we can repeat the procedure. So I'm going to do it again. This time I'm not going to let up. I'm going to let the lights continue to cycle. They will cycle for as long as you hold the button down, and we're going to release on the second time that it goes blue and red, just in case you're not quick enough to do it the first time. So we're keeping the button down. We should have released there. Now we're going to release on blue and red the second time it shows blue and red. This is required. It has to be done this way. If you release on different colors, then unplug and redo it. You can cause the module to lock up by using incorrect steps. So once we have this plug plugged in and locked, we're going to just make sure that if we do this, that these lights don't change. We're going to plug in the remaining plugs. We're going to plug in the 20-pin plug. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug in the 20-pin. Now, when we do this, we want to be careful not to push the program or button on the device while we're doing this, because you'll see that in a minute we're going to have to press and release that button a couple of times. So if we accidentally push the button while we're plugging in these connections, the Evo's going to not go through the steps correctly. Now we're going to plug in the red plug. We're going to plug in the white plug. Now we're going to have to press and release this button twice. That's why I said don't press it accidentally while you're plugging in, or that's going to count as one press. So this is kind of letting the Evo know what type of vehicle it's in. So we're going to push it twice. We're going to have our lights blinking, as you're seeing. We're going to take the key to the vehicle. Now remember, it cannot be the gray key. It must be a black primary key. We're going to put it in the ignition. We're going to turn the ignition to the run position. When we do this, we're going to have the lights flashing indicating the immobilizer codes have been learned. Now we're going to have the blue light come on and flash indicating that the CAN bus has been programmed. At this point, the pairing process is complete. We're going to remove our key from the ignition. We can go ahead and we can test our remote starter. We're going to make sure that the driver's and passenger doors are closed and that the hood is fully closed. We're going to go ahead and we're going to lock the vehicle. If you would like, you can wait, if you have an OEM alarm, for the alarm to set. And this would involve waiting about 30 to 45 seconds. We're going to go ahead and we're going to trigger remote start. Okay, our vehicle is set to run for 15 minutes. We can shut the engine off also. Now, if we've made our SIL data connection and done everything correctly, this is the result we will achieve. If we do not follow the instructions or the video, then the device may not program correctly for you. We've activated our remote starter. We let the vehicle run until it timed out. When it did, our alarm went off. Now, this has happened on a couple of these vehicles. I've gotten calls for this. If this happens to you, you need to revisit the connection at the key sense wire. I revisited my connection and determined that the tap did not seat fully on this wire. You can strip and wrap this wire, or you can test this wire if you're having this issue. So I'm going to take an ordinary test light, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ground this wire. So when I ground this wire by probing it with a test light, you'll hear the key sense activate like you've slid the key in the vehicle. Okay? This is confirmation that this wire is making a connection. If you put the ground here and you don't have it sound like that, then this connection's no good. Do not test on the key sense wire. Test on the Evo wire going to the key sense. This will test this connection. So having said that, should have solved that issue with anybody whose alarm goes off when the unit times out. If your alarm or your horn honks after you remote start it, you may not have an alarm system. You want to do the test in the beginning that I've done to check for OEM security. And remember, this unit will not control aftermarket security systems. So if you have an aftermarket security system, don't buy this. If you buy this unit, you want to buy my version with a shock sensor, and you would remove your aftermarket security and replace everything. We've completed our OEM remote activated plug-and-play remote starting system that activates from the OEM remote. There's a couple options. Being that this vehicle has separate remotes, that the remotes are separate from the key, it's a perfect candidate for a remote swap. The 642W two-way remote from Fortin is an excellent choice. We're going to go ahead and we're going to show you how this works. If you choose to add or purchase this system from me with the 642W antenna kit, you're going to possibly want to do a horn connection. So we're up under the steering column again. We have this yellow plug here. This is airbag stuff, so we don't want to go near that. We're looking at the black plug adjacent to it. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to press the clip, we're going to remove this plug. I like to test to see if the horn works after we remove the plug. Okay, the horn doesn't work, so we know that we're on the correct plug. Now, if we look at the back of the wiring harness, or the back of the plug where the wires enter the harness, we're actually looking for this coral wire. They call it orange in the data. It's more of a coral or tannish color. We're going to go ahead and we're going to isolate that wire. Now, I have a grounding style test light that I can check this wire with. We're just going to probe it and we're going to see if it makes a sound. Okay, so we know that is the correct horn wire. It's a negative triggered horn, so I'm going to show you a little bit closer so you can identify the pin position if you don't have test equipment, which is kind of a no-no, not testing, going by pins solely on connections that you can test. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set this tablet down. I'm going to splay these wires out a little bit and give you a good picture. Okay, we're looking at the plug from the back. The clip is up in the upright position right here. And our target wire is this coral colored wire that I've separated right here. So you can see where the pin location is. We have it adjacent to an empty pin and then kind of next to a violet wire. So if you orientate the plug like this with the clip in the upright position, you should have no problem locating the horn wire. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a connection to this horn wire. Okay, I'm going to unscrew my posi tap. Now I'm going to be down here on the harness. I've chosen to apply my tap a little bit lower so I don't have to cut any of this wire protecting loom away. A nice gap right here where these wires meet. I'm going to apply my posi tap. Going to loosen the collar. Going to locate my horn wire. That is the orange wire with a black stripe labeled horn. And this wire will only be present if you buy this kit from me with an RF kit. So I've gone ahead, I'm just making my connection. I'm going to plug this harness back in and we're going to go ahead and continue on. Okay, we've connected the optional horn wire. This way we'll have a panic feature so we can completely replace our remote and still have all the same functions. This remote is a panic button, so we need to connect the horn if we want to have that panic feature. So when you buy my kit, if you buy it with the 642W, I program the 642W before I send it to you, so you don't have to figure out how to program it. The only thing you have to do is take my blue plug and plug it into the blue 4-pin port on your device, and at this point you're ready to go. Everything's been programmed. The remotes match the Evo. We can go ahead and we can test it. We're outside of our vehicle and we're going to demo the 642W. It comes with two remotes. They're two-way remotes, so they will confirm commands sent to the vehicle. We'll start with locking the doors. And you see the LED light blinks to let you know that the command has been received and executed by the vehicle. Okay, so we have our unlock command. I'm going to show you the panic. The reason we hooked up the horn is if you press it once to lock, and then you press it again, we'll get a horn honk confirmation. You can also hold down the lock button and have a feature. So we can activate a panic by holding down the lock button. Pressing the lock button again will turn off that panic feature. We're going to start the vehicle. We're going to press and hold the power button, or the power icon, which would be the start button. So trigger remote starting, and as you see, the light did go green, and it's giving a flash green, letting us know that the vehicle is running. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to shut the vehicle down. Press the function button and the power icon, and the engine will turn off. These are really nice remotes. They have approximately 3,000 feet of range. It's a great upgrade to get rid of the OEM remote that you've been carrying around forever. Now for our last part of our video, I'm going to show you how to install the smartphone controller from WarmCarNow. This is the ultimate accessory. It will allow you to check the status of whether the vehicle is locked or unlocked, start the vehicle, locate the vehicle. It tells you the battery voltage. There's a lot of things that you can do with this. This is the best. Top of the line smartphone control. Okay, we're going to add our smartphone controller. Now, when you buy from me, this is the way you get it. You get it all plugged into the unit if you buy it together. If you just buy a smartphone controller from me, you're on your own. You gotta set it up yourself. But if you buy the item together, or you previously purchased something from me, I will help you install it. Very simple. My stuff comes pre-paired to the device, so this would be paired to this. The only thing you would have to do is locate the blue plug, plug my blue plug directly into the unit. With my setup, I don't require the adapters that you get with the MyCar. So if I haven't set it up, don't bother doing it this way because it won't work for you. Alright, so on the case, it says this side down. We plugged it in. It immediately starts acquiring a cellular signal and a GPS signal. So we're going to go ahead, and while the light's flashing, it is acquiring a signal. When the lights go solid, it is locked and ready to use. I'm going to just set this up on the steering column for a couple minutes while it acquires its signal and does its thing. We're gonna load up the program and do it. If you're buying this for the first time and you've got the controller and it's from me, you would go ahead and plug this in and download your app, and you would be ready to go. So I'm going to show you from outside how it's going to control this vehicle. We're outside of our vehicle. We have the app downloaded, and we're looking at the screen right now. We have a signal strength indicator, a voltage indicator, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to lock the car. Okay, and we show that our doors are locked through a confirmation. I'm going to unlock. We've unlocked the vehicle. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to lock it. And now I'm going to remote start the vehicle. Sent the command. Our vehicle is up and running. We have an indication of our run time. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to shut the vehicle down. And I can also locate the vehicle with a GPS unit. This is right in my shop, so I'm going to go ahead and go back. I'm going to lock the vehicle, and that is the MyCar demo for the 2010 through 2017 Toyota Tundra G Key. This is from WarmCarNow. Just to show you also, I have this running on my tablet at home, so I don't have to use my phone. It will also work on an Android or iPad. I'm going to lock the doors. I'm going to unlock the doors. Start the vehicle. This is a Samsung Tab E, and it works great with it. And I've shut the vehicle down also. And I can do the tracking with it as well. Again, shows exactly where the vehicle is. I'm going to give you a shot of where I mounted my unit. Just to give you some ideas. You may have, a better spot. Routed the harness. Keep in mind you're going to have to put this steering column cover plastic back on. So I like to make sure that this plug is up out of the way. This is basically how I mounted mine. Right here is my wire going over the passenger side. Up high over that, it's not going to hit anything. Down in here, I'm going to leave this program button down low. I'm going to zip it to a wiring harness so I can access it. It's not a bad idea to be able to access this by turning the key on, pressing this 3 times. You disable remote start. Turning the key on again, pressing it 3 times, you re-enable remote start. Also, to program antenna kits or the MyCar unit, this button is required. So basically, here's everything. The wire routing. I'm going to show you the passenger side when I'm done. Okay, here's a shot with the metal airbag underdash in place, so we stayed nice and high with the unit and we don't have any conflicts here. Now if you get to this point, this is pre-assembly or pre-reassembly, I would go ahead and I would test everything again before going any further. I'm also doing the MyCar smartphone controller. If you see, I have it zipped up with the correct side facing down to the bottom of the vent for the heater here. Should be a good spot for this to get reception. Okay, you'll see my wire routing. Here's the zip ties that I haven't cut yet. It's coming up through the opening, following this harness up to the module. Very simple.